Yo, how's it, fam? How's it, man?
Man, it's always good to be alive.
Feels good to be alive, man. It feels good to be alive. It's a new day, and we have to always enjoy. Welcome back to everyone who's watching us, all our viewers. You know, we appreciate you guys. Even those who don't agree, with us. I love you guys. Those who agree and those who don't, I just love it. Even those who are angry in the comments, bring it on. I'm not scared of you. Come, let's face each other like real men and real women. Guys, today I want us to have a chat about one of our brothers here in SA. Umzulu, the Zulu man, Vusi Thembekwayo. This gentleman, he's been doing a lot of work in the venture capital space, but in the general entrepreneurship space as well in the past few years. Even before COVID, I remember he used to have these nice master classes. I used to follow them very closely. Very, very nice and effective master classes. But recently, Vusi Thembekwayo made some comments on an interview with JJ Taban, right? And I'm just gonna roughly, summarize what he was talking about. They were talking about the issues facing South Africa, ESCOM, and many other issues, and policing and how ineffective our policing is. And he made two references that I think resonated with me. May his soul rest in peace, AKA. So he referenced AKA is passing away. And he said that if the apartheid government wanted to find AKA's murderers, they would have found them already. And he made it very clear that he's not saying that they would have found the right one, but they would have done something at the very least. He also mentioned a story that's very, very, very personal to him. The passing away of his father, how his father was murdered. And the people who murdered his father are known. It's not like they're secret. They know them. They're roaming the streets and the police have not arrested them. So Vusi Thembekwayo was alluding to those issues. And he said, which is the point of controversy, that if the apartheid government was the one dealing with these issues and they wanted to catch these criminals, they would have caught them. And people got really angry because this spoke to the efficacy, how efficient the apartheid government systems were. I think a lot of people confused efficiency or efficacy with morality, Vusi Thembekwayo never said that the apartheid government was moral or that the apartheid government loved black people. We know the truth. They didn't love us. They still don't love us. They were never good to us. And even those systems of theirs that were so good, they were not good to us. But for the goals that the apartheid government had, those systems were perfect. They worked very effectively, which is why we had to fight against apartheid. Otherwise, if apartheid was not effective, we would not have fought against it. That's what this guy is saying. But maybe let me just share a little bit of an analysis on Vusi Thembekwayo himself, right? So I met this gentleman a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I met him in Johannesburg. It was a book launch of the Magna Carta of Exponentiality. And then the other one was a leadership conference that I was a part of. So I met him in the book launch. I have some pictures with him. I'll see if I can find them. But I met him and I found him to be very interesting. He's a very interesting guy, very intelligent, young, he was young. I mean, he is young, relatively. Very intelligent man. And I think I know he loves South Africa. He loves South Africa. He loves the young people of this country. He loves black people, He loves South Africans. And for me, I appreciate people like that. I don't have to agree with everything they say, but I deeply appreciate them. And that's just how I choose to live my life. I choose to appreciate the goodness that we have. Because we have so much evil. Sometimes our judgment gets clouded in the midst of that evil. So much so that we forget the goodness we have in our midst. Vusi Thembekwayo is one of the good ones. He's a very, very heavily invested man in this country, in the youth of this country. And he's one of a kind, very intelligent, hardworking, highly disciplined, proper work ethic. So I met him during those times and he delivered some keynote speeches that were very intriguing. And he spoke about offending. That's where I started to be comfortable with the idea of offending. Vusi Thembekwayo spoke about how important for a leader it is to be inspirational, to inspire, but also to offend. Because sometimes in order to break a structural mold, you need to bring some offense to the table. He never spoke about insults. And I think people need to understand the difference here. Insults and offense are two different things. For example, in soccer, when two teams are playing and you can see one team is really dominating the other, and their strategy is not to be laid back and defend, but to go and attack. That's what we call an offense strategy. They are going for it, they're taking initiative, they're being proactive, and they're going and attacking the target. That's offense. It doesn't have to be something negative. And that's what Vusi Thembekwayo was alluding to, that it's important for a leader to be offensive, to take initiative, to provoke thought. But he never said people must insult. And that's how I met him. I know he's a father, and I know he's a married man. And I respect that about him. I respect men who are fathers, you see, especially in this day and age, man, where there's a lack of decent fathers. Children don't really have father figures in their households for many reasons that we're not going to discuss now. So he's a father, he's a husband, he's a businessman, and he's a well-spoken young man with a gift and passion for speaking. This guy won an international speaking competition in his late teens or early 20s. He made his first millions in his early 20s. This is someone who's been doing the work, man. A lot of the things he talks about is because he knows those things. He might not know everything about them, but he knows those things. And I think it's good to start there. So in a country with a pass rate of 30%, a lot of the people feel like they have a right to comment on everything, especially when it comes to someone else. These people who were offended by Vusi Thembekwayo's sentiments, they had a right to be offended. They were not wrong. But then they resorted to insulting him on Twitter, dragging him, saying that he's beating his wife up, he's abusing his wife. And I hear that there were even people threatening him, which is funny to me because those people threatening Vusi Thembekwayo have a platform. They can go to SABC, they can go to ETV and request an interview and do a rebuttal of what Vusi Thembekwayo was saying. No one is stopping them from arguing against what Vusi Thembekwayo was saying.
Wouldn't you say maybe it was a bit insensitive for him to actually compare our current government with the white apartheid government?
You may say it was a bit insensitive, but was it wrong? Sensitivity is not going to help us out of what we're dealing with right now. Sensitivity is not going to help us out of what we're dealing with right now. This thing of victimhood must stop, man. It's been 30 years since this country has been run by these guys and they're destroying everything about it, and we must be sensitive about that. If the ANC doesn't want this country to be compared to the apartheid government, then they should act differently. Yes, he might have been a bit insensitive to people who were victims of apartheid, himself being a victim though. You need to understand, this is different when a white person says that and when a black South African guy who's dark-skinned with a pink lip. This is a black guy, dark-skinned with a pink lip from Koka, Sipenoni, man. He has seen a big share of insults as well because of his dark skin. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Trust me. I know a good fair share of being insulted because of my dark skin, which is the result of apartheid. He was not praising apartheid. He was saying that if that government wanted to do something, they were able to do it. And therefore, asking the question of what's stopping the ANC government from doing the same things that they need to do. Secondly, when JJ Tabane asked him, have you given up on South Africa or on the government? Vusi Thembekwayo said no, which is what people they don't point that out. He said, I have not given up on the government. I have not lost hope. I've given up on politicians thinking that they are leaders. I'm paraphrasing. So he recognized that there are people who love their work in government. There are people who love what they're doing in government, you see. And that's very good, man, because that's true. There's a lot of people who are deeply technical and good at what they're doing in government. And he said that, he recognizes and acknowledges that. And therefore, he can't say he's giving up on the government when there are so many smart people in government, so many technical people who can get this country running. But he said he's given up on politicians. So now, to address this issue of people feeling that it was insensitive of Vusi Thembekwayo, I understand that. I understand that people felt like it was insensitive. But was it not insensitive for them then to come back and say, you beat up your wife without evidence?
So yeah, I think it was actually uncalled for.
Absolutely.
Because they were actually not responding to the argument.
Which is
so they decided to attack him personally, which is wrong.
With unsubstantiated statements. Because there's no proof that Vusi Thembekwayo is actually beating up his wife. There's no proof, man. We can't say he's beating up his wife. The guy says he went to court 3 times already. And every time it's been postponed to a different date. Why is that? Why is that the case? He had to leave wherever country he was come to South Africa only to be dismissed 3 minutes later. 3 times, man. And that's exactly the same issue that this guy is raising, that the systems are not working as they should. But here's the thing, they could. The system in South Africa could work, but the people in power don't want the systems to work because then they benefit from the systems not working. And this is exactly what this guy is raising. That if the government wanted to do something during apartheid time, they did it. With being evil, with being corrupt, with being immoral, with being racist, with being white supremacist, they still did what they wanted to do. And now here's the ANC. They are not as evil, one would say. They are not as, maybe they are as corrupt as the apartheid government, while stopping them from actually doing what they are supposed to do. Do you know why? Do you know why they don't do what they're supposed to do? First and foremost, they don't know how to govern a country. These are guerrilla fighters, man. These are war machines, you know. They are weapons, these guys. All they know is to destroy. And they needed to destroy during those times. They had to destroy that government back then. But now we need builders, you know. So maybe it's time for them to step aside, allow a younger generation, more technical people, more knowledgeable people, more skilled people, people who have merit to actually do the job.
And I think that would be fair, man.
It would be very fair.
They
man.
have benefited.
They've chowed everything now. Look at Guademantasha, man. Hey, that guy must rest, man. He must go home and relax now. Watch his cattle. Ramaphosa must go home and watch his Angola cows. It's done. It's time now to relax. You understand? And that's why.
I think that's why they keep them there, because they can't do nothing. They don't have ideas.
They don't, and they're not gonna have them, man. They're not gonna. These guys were born in the 40s and in the 50s. They're tired, man. Shem. They don't know what to do. They are on top and doing nothing, as Julius Malema would say. But let's go back to this issue, man. That people resorted to insulting Vusi Thembekwayo personally when they couldn't really, argue against his point. You could argue against the point that Vusi Thembekwayo, you're an apartheid apologist. You are praising apartheid, although it was immoral. I promise you, he did acknowledge the immorality of that time. He did acknowledge it. The only thing he pointed out was that they could do what they wanted to do. With that immorality, with that wickedness, with that evil, with that corruption, the nepotism they did. A lot of the people under apartheid were not even intelligent, man. They were just puppets who were following instructions from upper powers. But then they managed to do what they were supposed to do for the purposes that they were supposed to do it for, which is why we are here today, which is why we have self-hatred today. That apartheid was effective on us. It killed us, man. It separated us from ourselves. And that's what Vusi Thembekwayo is saying. Why can't we do what we're supposed to do? Which is the opposite of what the apartheid government used to do. We're supposed to make sure justice is served for those who deserve justice. We're supposed to make sure that services are delivered, man. Potholes are fixed. Jobs are created. Do you know that half of all unemployed people in this country don't have matric, ne? Young people. Half don't have matric. Which means the other half, they all have matric. Out of that half that has matric, about 80% of those who have matric are unemployed. 80% of the unemployed people who have matric, and then the remaining ones have tertiary education. So a huge chunk of the people who are unemployed in this country, of the young people who are unemployed, are people who went to school, people who went to varsity, people who went to tertiary college, university.
I think the issue is that now those people were never taught to be employers. They were taught to be employees.
They were never taught to.
That's why they are unemployed.
And unemployable, not just unemployed. They are also unemployable. Their minds are dead. They were killed by the education system. Do you see, my brother? Someone went to high school, they finished high school for 12 years, they went and studied safety management in South Africa, man. What industry needs that? I'm not saying there's no industry that needs it. I'm really asking, what industry needs it? How high is the demand for that? Someone from Katlehong, someone from Soweto, someone from Khayelitsha, Gugulethu Nyanga. Already there's a bias against you, and you go and study safety management. What are the odds that you will get a job or you will create employment in that sector?
That's what I'm trying to say. When you study, you shouldn't study to get a job.
Yes.
You should create jobs.
Absolutely.
Yourself.
And look at
even
the
if
context.
You study the safety and management.
Yes.
You can open a channel and teach people about safety.
Which is sad, man, because I studied finance, right? In one of the courses that I did was financial management. I'm gonna tell you, man, first year already we were told that the role of financial managers is to maximize shareholder price or shareholders' wealth. Did you hear what I just told you? I was told at university The role of a financial manager is to maximize the wealth of the shareholder. Now that shows you exactly what our purpose was. It was not to be rich. They told us, your role as a financial manager is not to be rich. And to maximize it, not just keep them, but to make sure it keeps on increasing. I was like, what the hell? Yeah, and it kept on being repeated. What your job is very clear. You work for a company, make sure the share price increases. Make sure the share price keeps on increasing so that the dividends can get higher, performance is increased for the people who hold the shares. Anyway, back to Vusi Thembekwayo. So, all these issues that we just pointed are issues that the government has not been doing much to address. They could be doing more, man. Right now in Wits, there's protest. Right now, there's protest. And this guy, one of the SRC people there, was being questioned. Why? It says that you guys have money, you've fundraised for the students. Why are you not helping? The guy was like, no, we raised funds for 12 million rand. And we're helping students, but we can't help everyone. What we need is 33 million rand. And he went on to point that currently the security companies that are operating in Wits to block the protesters, they are being paid 150,000 rand an hour. 150,000 rand an hour, man, for security, instead of taking that 150,000 rand an hour
and resolve the issue.
Do you realize what the problem is? They want to maintain the status quo. They don't want to change things. Remember a few years ago, man, black people didn't get jobs because they were not educated enough. They were not qualified. Now black people are qualified. They can't get jobs because they don't have experience. When black people have experience, I promise you, there's going to be another reason why they're not going to have jobs. Why? Because they want to keep the status quo. And the people, one of the groups that have power to change this is the government. It's not only the government, but the government is one of the groups that have an interest, that should have a vested interest in changing this. And that's what Vusi Thembekwayo is alluding to. He's shedding light on that the government does not seem to have real vested interest in changing the situation in this country. Why is my father, the murderers of my father, still not in prison? Why are the murderers of AKA not arrested?
So would you say now, is it okay to put the blame on Bheki?
Well,
you say now that the police force is not performing their duties. It's on you.
I can't put the blame on Sergeant Malibela or Sergeant Kumalo there in the police station in some township. I can't go to that guy and be like, you see, the police force is not working. I can't. His job is to take instructions from up above. You see, who is the main guy? Who's the president of the police in this country? It's Bheki, man. Bheki is the one who's the president of the police, and he reports to the head of state, Cyril Big Nose Ramaphosa. So if Bheki now, whatever performance issues the SAPS face, it goes back to Bheki. It's not just Bheki. All the ministers, the minister of sport, when Bafana is not performing, when SAFA is not doing their job, we go and ask the minister of sport. The minister of arts and culture, he wanted to do a 200 million rand flag, and then they wanted to give 1 billion rand to Tottenham Hotspurs. We didn't go and ask the president of some organization. We went to the minister. So yes, it's right to put the blame on Bheki. And then he's the one who can address us and say, no, guys, I've already allocated this amount of money here. He's the one who must go and ask those people. We don't know them. We don't know the internal structures of how this top-down strategy works. But we know the person to ask is Bheki. He's the one who's in the cabinet with the president. And if Bheki fails to answer, we go to the president himself. He's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces in this country. The police, they serve the president when they should be serving the country under the president.
So for me, I would say that's like a lack of accountability from the people, that are working in the police force. Because now you cannot track how the instructions came down.
That's true.
Who said what to who.
That's true.
So it's just...
Yeah, no, that is true.
Anyone accountable.
That is true. That's why we go to Bheki, because if you go to the station commander, they're gonna give you some stinking attitude, man. Like, you can't go beyond that. You have to go to a different location, to a different police station. So the station commanders, it's like they have all the power now. Do you get it? The provincial commissioners, like, we don't have access to these people. That's the problem, and in this country, we do not have access to the structures that are supposed to serve the people. And that's why today we are where we are. People think the police are a joke, man. Do you even think about calling the police when there's trouble? I never think of that. I think of, how do I defend myself?
I think of calling my family.
Exactly.
Go and take my stuff.
Exactly. Call the family, call friends. Let's go and deal with this, man.
That's not the right thing.
But then we don't have a functional police. That's why we have to then grill Bheki. And that's what Vusi Thembekwayo is saying, that I haven't given up on the government, the structure itself. You see,
idea.
the idea of government and governance. I know there's intelligent South Africans working day in and day out in the Reserve Bank, day in and day out at ESCOM, at PRASA. A lot of South Africans who love this country, man. But then the people who have the power now to make executive decisions are the ones who are not making proper executive decisions. With all the data they have, they know exactly where the problem is and how it should be fixed, but they're not fixing it. And that's where now the comparison with apartheid comes in. And people get offended. And I understand why.
Couldn't he maybe compare it to maybe China?
Exactly, man.
Or Russia?
No, that's why I'm saying I understand why people are angry. Because then it's like he's praising apartheid. He's an apartheid apologist. I totally understand why people think that way. I also feel like this narrative, it's sort of like indirectly, this narrative of saying the apartheid government would have done that, it sort of like reinforces, you know, the idea that the apartheid government was superior, which is why they did apartheid in the first place. Although it doesn't enforce it, but indirectly, it might enforce that idea, especially when you deal with apartheid apologists like Helen Zille. Remember, Helen Zille was saying that colonization in Africa was good because it left us with roads and electricity and all that nonsense. People like that have a fundamentally deeply seated problem, deep-seated issue in their mind that she can't be wrong. Her people can't do anything wrong. Colonization was good, which is crazy because she's Jewish. She's an Ashkenazi Jewish girl, Zille, from Germany. The Jewish people there dealt with Hitler during the Holocaust. You can't say Hitler was good. Oh, Hitler's organizational skills were perfect. You can't do that. Otherwise, the Jewish organizations will come and deal with you. Remember Mcabo Dlamini? Mcabo Dlamini, when he was a vet SRC president, he said something along those lines, that he was praising the organizational skills of Hitler and the Nazi hegemony. And the Nazi hegemony was so effective, which is why they had reparations to pay. They were so effective. Even to this day, we use Nazi company products, from perfumes to computers to automobiles. VW was associated with the Nazi. IBM, the computer company, worked with the Nazi. Even Mercedes-Benz worked with the Nazi, man. You see, Hugo Boss, the perfume company, they literally manufactured the uniforms of Schutzstaffel, which is the security, the paramilitary forces under Hitler. Hugo Boss was the one who made those uniforms. Adidas, the Adidas brothers, they were Nazi party members, man, under Hitler himself. But we still use their products to this day. We know we have selective outrage, as Chris Rock would put it. It's selective outrage. When it serves us, then we get angry. But you go and buy something that was developed under apartheid government. You go and use Standard Bank. You go into ABSA and you become a member of ABSA, yourself included.
Have you seen how the Jewish people react when you start praising?
They teach you a lesson.
Nazis?
Look at Mcabo Dlamini.
Wouldn't you say now, Vusi Thembekwayo called this upon himself for people to react the way
Yes, he did.
And he shouldn't be crying about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree 100%. He should have. If I'm going to say something like that, I expect anger. You see, I expect
and you
anger.
cannot control what people might say when they're angry.
Exactly, man. That's why I'm saying he had it coming. And it's fine. It's fine for people to be angry at him. He had it coming because then what it does, as I said, it might incentivize white supremacists and apartheid apologists like Helen Zille to say, they will clip a portion of Vusi's video. You're like, you see, this is what I was saying. I've seen it. No, I've seen it many times. When with white supremacists, they take things that are said by black people, they clip them just a little bit. Like there's a guy in America,
out of context.
Ben Shapiro, this white supremacist boy, Ben Shapiro. He likes to, try and minimize the pain of slavery and systemic racism, if he even believes in it. So
I've heard some even say slavery never happened at all.
Yeah, that's why they have people like who's this guy? Who's this white guy? This psychologist guy who always says things that are not practical. Jordan Peterson. Yeah, with his theoretical stuff. There. Very, very smart guy, but his solutions are not practical for us. They like to try and minimize the pain of slavery. Oh no, I was not there, so I can't be held accountable. But then when you talk about Hitler now,
you are beneficiary of this thing.
Exactly, it's still there. It's still happening, man. Systemic oppression is still there. To act as if it's not there, and you're just a clinical psychologist. You're not even an expert in this subject. Just a psychologist, man. A lot of your methods themselves are failed, and a lot of the people in that profession themselves are sad and angry in their lives. Divorcees, they're not even having good lives. Anyway, back to the point that Vusi Thembekwayo might have called this upon him. Yes, I think to an extent he did call it upon him. He did call it upon him. That's why I commented in his video when he was explaining I committed and said, no, man, don't be angry about this. You have to accept it. As a leader, I still love you, but you have to accept that people get angry about subjects like this. It's fine that he mentioned it. I get his point and I agree with his point. You see, it's not just the apartheid government. Any other government, man, in the world, like a Chinese government, they would have found the guy. They would have dealt with them. So maybe he could have found a better example to say, the Chinese government would have found this person. Or the government in the UAE would have found this person. I totally accept that, man. But to now say, this guy, he beats his wife. No, that's false, man. That's a lie. Was it a lie when he said the apartheid government could have found these people? Was it a lie, my brother? Is it a lie? Is it a lie that the apartheid government did what they wanted? But they did. There's evidence.
I don't know.
And he even said they could have found the wrong person. Eh? They could go and capture a wrong black person, but they would have done something. Do you hear, man? He's not saying the apartheid government were so good at doing things. He said they could have captured the wrong person.
And this is just speculations.
And it is speculation, which is why I think Vusi Thembekwayo.
It's not gospel truth.
Yeah, it's not. And Vusi Thembekwayo had a right to say what he said. It might have been insensitive. Politically, it might have not been the best thing to say. Would I say it? Maybe not. Not in a platform like ETV, because I know it will incentivize white supremacy in this country. And we've had it, sprawling out of control nowadays, with the whole thing of pit bulls and the whole thing of the Bloemfontein pool saga. I would not have said that in public at this point. Maybe find a better, find a better explanation, a better analogy. You could use the Botswana government, man. Or even
that's more neutral.
Yeah, the Botswana government, man, you understand? Because you can't say now, do you want the ANC to be like the apartheid government? Someone could argue like that. Now, Vusi Thembekwayo, do you want the ANC to be like the apartheid government? Because they could have captured the wrong black person. They did many times. They would accuse black people of raping people, these white women. And then they would capture them, and they did something, but it was not the right thing to do. So it's not just about doing something, it's about doing the right thing. You see, so now Vusi could have maybe extrapolated on that. You see, so yes, he said what he said, and I'm not gonna cancel him because of that. It doesn't negate all the goodness.
Do you think maybe he might be cancelled for some of the things that he's saying?
Nah, I don't think he's gonna be cancelled. I don't think he's gonna be cancelled yet. Remember, a lot of white people agree with him, so he's not gonna be cancelled. As you know, South Africa most, But I think it would benefit him to be more, to do a little bit more depth, deeper analysis before he says stuff. Because I don't think it's a good example to say now the apartheid government would have done better. Maybe not. Maybe, because think about it, man. The most likely situation is that they would have captured the person already, 100%. But would that be the right person? Because we know they had the racial prejudice.
They just want to close the case.
Exactly. Look at Steve Biko. They killed him and they said he jumped off a building. Do you understand, man? Christian was killed for political reasons, but then they say it was that guy from Sweden or Switzerland, which is a lie, man. There's no guy from Switzerland who's going to come and kill a South African communist.
And one guy.
Come on, man. There's no such a thing. You see? So they did give explanations. Oh, no, it was this person. Oh, no. But then were they the right ones? Were they the correct ones? So it's not just about the apartheid government doing something. It's about doing the right thing. So we can't use the apartheid government now as a measure of the ANC's bad performance. You can't. There's nothing that allows you to do that. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you like me or you don't. You can't use the apartheid government as a measure against which the ANC should perform. The ANC should look up to more positive, references. They should look up to more positive references, more democratic references. They could look up to Singapore, maybe, how things are done in Singapore.
Bruh.
You see, Singapore, it's a beautiful development, man. They could look up to that. You can't now use P.W. Botha's government or Hendrik Verwoerd's government, knowing very well these guys were slave masters and they had white supremacist agendas. So I reject that idea that apartheid government would do much better. They would do something, but would it be the right thing to do? Think about that for a minute. So, back to Vusi Thembekwayo, man. I think outrage that comes from people saying stuff like that is to be expected. As you said, it might have been a little insensitive. But that outrage is to be expected. And I think I can't just say, now Vusi Thembekwayo must stop talking. He must just shut up. He must speak, man. We need him to speak. There's a lot of other, 99.9% of the things he said are true. 99.9% of the things he said were good. And even in this one, in this thing of apartheid, I hear him. I hear what his point is. Am I saying, was it the most perfect delivery? No, it was not. But what did it do? It triggered a thought-provoking conversation.
Would you say what she said was true? That the apartheid government would have caught the person?
No. Remember, he said, even if it was the wrong person, I agree with him there. They would definitely have caught some black guy somewhere. No, he explained it, man, you see. No, I think what he's saying is that at least they had some action going on, you see. As horrible as they were, he even mentions they were evil, they were wicked, and they were very corrupt. But they did something, Yan. This old man in the ANC office, it's like they have absolutely no desire to do anything at all. And I get that point, and I agree they would definitely have caught someone. If maybe you, they would catch you there. Yeah, let's get that. Because remember, these were propagandist people, man. They didn't love black people, they hated black people, they still do to this day. But I think it's an opportunity now for Vusi Thembekwayo, even himself, to learn. That's why you can't cancel, but you engage. You come with facts. You come with a proper, well-researched and well-informed narrative so that Vusi Thembekwayo can hear as well. Oh, I hear that point. Maybe you have a point. Eh? And then he can learn something and I can learn something as well. I think that's a much healthier way. You don't cancel people like Vusi Thembekwayo, man. People who actually love this country. You don't cancel people like that. They didn't cancel the white women who were saying that black men should be killed. I didn't hear black people, let's go to her house. No one went to her house. Did you see people going to her house to say...
Nothing happened, bro.
Exactly. So why do you want to cancel this black guy now?
She just went viral, you know.
Remember that white boy who raped a child at Steers? No, it was a Spur. Somewhere, where is it? Not those provinces further north. I think northwest or something like that. A white boy, man, raped a 5-year-old girl in the toilet. They found him, and then all of a sudden he had mental issues. I'm like, what the hell? They should have visited his family home, man.
The Nota story.
Yes.
Mental issues.
Hey,
story.
Nota, hey. Nah, don't mess with my guy. I like that guy, man. But yeah, man, I think...
him too, bro.
I think with Vusi Thembekwayo, I appreciate the fact that he put himself out there to be scrutinized the way he's being scrutinized. I think the people who attacked his family, who attacked him as an abuser, I think they need to do better for themselves, you know. They really need to do better. You don't do that, man. You can't do that. We know there's a problem of women falsely accusing men in this country already. And they want to perpetuate that agenda, you know. We know this system is against men. So for the fact that as a man, he was willing to go out there and speak. He may not have spoken absolute truth, but he had a fact. He had a story. He was telling a story there. It's from his perspective. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I agree with parts of it and I disagree with parts of it. And fundamentally, I personally would not have used apartheid as a good point of reference for our government, because our government is not the same as the apartheid government. I would not have used that at all. I would have used something like Singapore, China, or even Botswana or Rwanda. He did use Rwanda actually, which is the crazy thing about this selective outrage. He did reference to Rwanda and Namibia and all these other countries in Africa, that South Africa now is being mentioned at the same level as those countries. It's being competes with those countries. But
I would disagree about that.
No.
Because if you can just look at BRICS, for instance.
No, let me finish. I'm not saying South Africa is at the same level. South Africa is still the big dog. But there's an occurrence now. You see, there's a phenomenon of countries repeatedly beating South Africa in all these different measures. Nigeria has a bigger economy, and then you have Egypt doing better in certain metrics. Back in the day, South Africa used to be the best in everything. That's what Vusi Thembekwayo is saying. Now, increasingly, even in the venture capital space where they do investments, South Africa is like, it's not even that important anymore. People want to go invest in Rwanda, want to go and invest in Botswana instead of South Africa. So that's what he's saying, that we are losing our position. We are still the big guy. Everyone wants to come here, but we are losing it slowly but surely, especially the narrative. And I think that was one of the things he was saying there, that we could do better. Maybe using the apartheid government is not a good matrix, because I don't think there's anything good we can take from them.
Not maybe the other countries are developing as well.
They are developing.
They are becoming better.
And we're not developing. That's what he's saying. We're not. We really are not, man. Look at this country. We are not developing. You understand? like we're stagnant. We're just a stagnant country, waiting, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. That's why people like Vusi Thembekwayo need to be allowed to speak. And that's why the people who responded to him need to be allowed to speak as well, so that we can see what is the point of equilibrium. Where do we intersect? Where can we find an amicable solution? Vusi Thembekwayo can implement some of his solutions in the venture capital space, in the public speaking space, in the corporate finance space. I could implement that in the IT space. You know, someone else could implement it in the public works space. Someone else could implement it in engineering. That's why we need to come together. Because if we don't, unfortunately, man, if every time someone says something we don't like, we insult them, we become personal. Unfortunately, my brother, this country is going even further down. We'll be migrating to Rwanda soon. We'll be running to Namibia, man. We'll be foreigners. We'll be makorakwere in Nigeria. You'll go to Nigeria, you'll be cooking jollof there. Trying to win all, hey, Oga, my friend, cooking jollof for those guys, because you don't want to engage in thought-provoking issues. You may be offended, that's fine. Come with facts, don't be angry. If it makes you angry, that's also fine. You have a right to be angry, you have a right to be sad, shame, but anger is not going to solve the situation in South Africa. So I think, Vusi Thembekwayo, my brother, I appreciate the fact that you put yourself out there, and I appreciate the fact that you're handling your issues in your marriage very decently, like a real, you know, black man. I hope things turn out good in that regard. But I also appreciate the people who took time to respond to the guy constructively, which I think are very few. Because, you know, a lot of people want to guilt trip you. They want you to feel guilty, so that you don't think, you need to provide a solution. Vusi Thembekwayo should not have used apartheid government. How about you use Botswana? How about you use Singapore? How about you use Rwanda? I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind. Peace.